under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So our student representatives have something for each of you. We want to thank the students, Celeste and Ava and Brooks, for being here tonight with their parents. Thank you, parents, for taking the time out of your busy schedules to have your students come and say the Pledge of Allegiance with us. It's so special that in Pasco School District we have the opportunity to see students at every board meeting who come and help us with our Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. Richardson, can we have a roll call, please? Present.
Present. Present.
Excused.
Present. Present. Present.
Present. Thank you very much, Ms. Richardson. The next item on our agenda is the approval of the meeting minutes from our regular board meeting on January 14th, 2024. I would entertain a motion.
Board President Brown, I move to approve the minutes of our regular board meeting January 14th, 2024.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes from our regular board meeting from January 14th, 2024. Is there any discussion?
Yes. It was said in there that I made one vote and I wasn't there. So I'll just say one correction there. Last meeting.
Shall we approve the board meeting minutes then as amended? Okay, so with the amendment of Director Norberg's vote, could I have a motion for amended regular board meeting minutes for January 14th?
Board President Brown, I make a motion to approve the minutes from our regular board meeting January 14th, 2024 as amended.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve our regular board meeting minutes from January 14th, 2024 as amended. Is there any further discussion? We will vote by voice vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the agenda review. Superintendent Whitney.
There are no additions or changes to tonight's agenda, and we are not requesting an executive session.
Thank you very much. Well, the next item is special recognition. This January is School Board Recognition and Appreciation Month. And so Mrs. Anna Tensmeyer will be leading that portion of our agenda.
Okay, thank you. Every January, we celebrate School Board Appreciation Month to recognize the dedicated individuals who guide and support our schools. This year, we express our gratitude to President Amanda Brown, Vice President Steve Simmons, Amy Phillips, Dr. Kennedy, Dr. Norberg, and our student board representatives Owen Bergstrom, Mason Bird, and Danica Reyna. These leaders generously dedicate their time, expertise, and passion to uphold excellence within Pasco School District. School board members play a crucial role in shaping student learning and achievement. They set the vision for the district, develop policies and budgets, and establish standards for accountability, all while working to ensure that every student reaches their full potential. Their work goes far beyond the boardroom. In addition to attending meetings, they dedicate countless hours to the district behind the scenes. They participate in conferences and training sessions to stay informed about the latest trends in educational leadership and instructional methods, ensuring PSD remains at the forefront of student success. So to express our appreciation, Julia Dudley, principal of McLaughlin Middle School, Veronica Machado, principal of Pasco High School, and Rose Gillian, assistant principal of Chihuahua High School, are here to present you with gifts on behalf of our staff. And Rose is actually going to come and share a few words.
Good evening, Superintendent Whitney, Board President Brown, and board members. On behalf of the principals across the Pasco School District, I'm honored to stand before you tonight to express our collective gratitude for your dedication and service to our students, staff, and families. Your leadership plays a vital role in shaping the future of our schools, and we are truly appreciative of the time and effort you invest in ensuring every student has the opportunity to succeed. As a token of our appreciation, we are presenting you this basket, which will get passed out to you right now. It is filled with items that promote self-care and positivity. We understand that the work you do is demanding, and we hope these small gestures serve as a reminder to take a moment for yourselves, to recharge, and to continue leading with the passion and commitment that make Pasco Schools such a special place. In our roles as principals, we strive to foster a culture of care and support within our schools, and we see that same commitment reflected in your leadership. Whether through policy decisions, advocacy, or your presence in our schools, your work makes a difference every day. Thank you for your steadfast commitment to our students, your belief in the potential of every child, and your partnership in building a brighter future for Pasco. We are proud to work alongside you, and we look forward to continuing our shared mission. Thank you.
Thank you, Rose. And there's also a certificate on, in front of you on your desks right there, that has a proclamation from the state of Washington about School Board Recognition Month, as well as a certificate from WASDA for each of you. So I'm going to have you all actually come down for a picture at the very end, but before we do that, we're also donating books to every school library in the district in honor of our board members. A special sticker inside each book will bear their names, serving as a lasting tribute to their invaluable contributions. Excuse me, this year our librarians recommended 3 outstanding books for this meaningful gesture. And Amanda, or President Brown, she has copies and she's going to pass them down while we're talking about them. So our elementary schools will receive copies of a book called Be Strong, an inspiring story about perseverance, teamwork, and redefining what it means to be strong. When Tanisha struggles with a rock climbing challenge at school, she learns from her family that true strength comes from showing up, speaking up, and leaning on others for support. So for our middle school students, we have a book titled The Strange Case of Origami Yoda, which is a humorous and heartwarming tale about navigating the challenges of 6th grade with a little help from the Force. When Dwight creates an origami Yoda finger puppet that offers surprisingly wise advice, his classmates are amazed. But is Yoda really tapping into the Force, or is there another explanation? And for our high school students, we have a book titled Restart, a compelling story about second chances and self-discovery. After falling off a roof, Chase wakes up in a hospital with no memory of his past, not even his own name. As he returns to school, he realizes that his peers have a very different reaction of him. So who does he want to become? So that is the third book. So thank you to our incredible school board for your unwavering dedication to our students, staff, and community. And we're going to ask you to come down so we can get a picture of you. Yeah, you can bring your certificates.
It's an honor to serve on the school board and to serve our community, but I know that the appreciation is received with gratitude. So we appreciate the principals coming tonight and, of course, the gifts. Is there anything else that anyone wanted to add?
I would just echo Board President Brown's comments. It is a privilege to have the opportunity to be of service to your community members and to try to help make our community a better place for our students and their families. And so, once again, I thank the voters of 2nd District for giving me this opportunity to be of service to them. And I remain absolutely committed to bettering our community every day. Thank you.
I'd like to say that I'm proud to come from Pasco School District, as I've spent my entire life in the district, and I'm really grateful for the opportunity to serve as a student representative on the board. And I'm just really proud to come from Pasco School District in general.
Well, thank you so much. And there's these little personalized keychains too, which are so thoughtful. And they say our last names and we are Pasco. And I think that just really exemplifies like why we serve, because we are part of Pasco and we serve the community. And I can't speak for everyone, but I know that it's really an act of love and service to be on the board. So thank you.
Thank you very much for these very thoughtful gifts.
Thank you.
We can clap. Thank you for. Our next item on the agenda is audience comments. The Pasco School Board of Directors values comments from its community, staff, parents, and students. And we welcome you to come and share those with us tonight. You can either comment here, if you're present here in the boardroom, by going up to the podium. You have 2 minutes. Ms. Richardson will set a timer, which will turn a different color after 1 minute and 30 seconds have elapsed, and then we'll beep at 2 minutes and we'll flash red. At that time, we ask you to wrap up your comments. And then you can also comment if you are online, and then you will just simply be muted once the 2 minutes has elapsed. If there is anyone who would like to give public comment who is present in the boardroom, we would invite you to make your way up to the podium.
Superintendent Whitney, Board President Phillips, members of the board. My name is James Bennett. I'm the band director at McLaughlin Middle School, and I'm very pleased to come with some of our students who went through a pretty grueling audition process, and some of them before you, they were all selected to participate in this year's Washington Music Educators Association Junior Honor Band. So they were selected from literally thousands of auditions to be amongst the best in the state, and we're just so proud of them, excited for them to be able to go up to, is it Spokane? In 2 weekends, and they're going to be a part of an amazing experience. And so I just wanted to start things off, and I'm going to introduce you to Bella. This is Bella.
Good afternoon, board members. My name is Bella Gonzalez, and I'm currently an 8th grader at McLaughlin Middle School. I auditioned for WMEA not too long ago, and I'm very proud to say, and really happy to say, that I was chosen to participate. And I do want to say that I wouldn't be able to do that if it weren't for my band director, Mr. Bennett. It is definitely all because of him that I am able to have this opportunity. And I know that I am really excited because music is definitely one of my greatest passions and something that makes me really happy and makes me excited to go to school, and definitely makes me happy to want to continue in the music program in my coming years at school.
Board, part of the thing that needs to be understood is that a lot of the kids from Pasco School District had to record by June 1, and then they turned their instruments in for instrument repair for the summer, for us to upload the audios files at the end of September, compared to everybody else in the state. So last year at Stevens Middle School, we had 1. This year we have 3. And one of the students here is Emmanuel Whitemarsh, who will be playing clarinet for the Washington Music Educators Junior All-State. Oh, you want your... By the way, instead of me talking, I took everything from all of us and put it so you guys can peruse. There you go. That's wrong with Michael. Okay.
Hi, my name is Emmanuel Whitemarsh, and I'm an 8th grader at Stevens Middle School. I was selected for the 2024-2025 Junior All-State Band and All-City Jazz Band. Last year, I auditioned for Junior All-State and I was not selected. This year, I tried again and I was selected for Junior All-State. Then in January, I decided that I was going to audition for the All-City Jazz Band. And then on January 13th, I auditioned for All-City, and on Friday, I found out that I got in. And this all means a lot because I've worked really hard to get to where I am. And thank you to Mr. May and to the Pasco School District for providing instruments for students. And thank you.
Good evening. I'm Gabriela Whitemarsh. I'm the parent of Emmanuel Whitemarsh. And Mr. May just asked us to give a parent perspective. So as our students are going through this program, it's such a huge honor and privilege to be able to see their journey as the heartbreak. And it's so hard as a parent, as I'm sure many of you understand, to see your child, the disappointment that they face. But with the support of Mr. May, and the encouragement that he provides, the opportunity that the district provides with providing instruments. It was really cool to see how Emmanuel felt what he felt and then came back and tried even harder, worked even harder, practiced even harder, and just that drive and motivation. So music is such an important part and such an important and it's just such a cool thing, right, to be able to be a part of, for them to be able to see. As a teacher, it's great also to see what that does to them in terms of academics, but more so just the life lessons that they learn from it. And so just want to thank you, especially Mr. May, for providing that space where students absolutely love his classroom. They love being around him, and he just instills such a joy of music. So thank you, and thank you all.
Board, I just wanted to mention the names that Yaretsi Lopez apparently had a basketball injury tonight and couldn't be here. She was at the she was supposed to be here and she isn't here. Trombone player and a fantastic kid. And the other one is Dominic Gallegos. He's a 7th grader. He made it his 7th grade year. So I'm grateful that we're starting a tradition. This is the 2nd year in a row that I get to come and mention kids' names for what they've done. Not what I've done. I've got to watch them be successful, and I get to capture, Mr. Bennett and I get to capture, we get to watch kids being amazing. And so thank you for allowing us to come and speak this before you tonight. Thank you again for all your support for the music program. Thank you.
I'm James Hales, and my wife and I have lived in Pasco School District for 20 years now, and with it being Board Appreciation Month, I just wanted to come and express my gratitude. We've had some children that have completed through and still that are working on completing, but grateful for all that you do as a school board. I'm also a teacher I'm a seminary teacher for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints at Chihuahua High School. And we have about 5% of your student body that come, and I'm really grateful for the participation and the involvement, the encouragement, the good people, the principals that I get to work with. I have a master's in educational leadership that I completed with several of your principals, and I know you got great people. In particular, I think Miss Whitney is one of the finest superintendents that I've ever worked with, and I've worked with in Richland and in Kennewick, and you've are doing great things. I just wanted to be a voice to express gratitude and thanks for that and encourage you to keep going. Thank you so much.
Is there anyone else in the boardroom who would like to give public comment? Mr. Garrett, do we have anyone online? Well, that public comment felt a lot like a report, and it makes me want to give feedback, but as our board policy is that we do not respond to public comment, but please know that those comments are all very appreciated. Moving to the next item on our agenda, we have the consent agenda. On the consent agenda this evening, we have personnel, warrants, overnight student travel for Chiawana High School FCCLA students to Career and Technical Student Organization Advocacy Day in Olympia, Washington, overnight student travel for Pasco High School FCCLA students to State Leadership Conference in Spokane, Washington, overnight student travel for New Horizons High School FFA Member Leadership Series in Moses Lake, Washington, overnight student travel for Chiawana High School DECA students to State Career Development Conference and Competition in Bellevue, Washington, out-of-state student travel for Chiawana High School DECA students to Pro Sports Day in Portland, Oregon, second reading and approval of district policy revisions 3208, sex discrimination and sex-based harassment of students prohibited, 3210, student non-discrimination, and 5011, sex-based discrimination and harassment prohibited, and Orion High School project construction change order number 5. I would entertain a motion.
Board President Brown, I move that we pass the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as presented. Is there any discussion? Ms. Richardson, a roll call vote, please. Yes.
Aye.
Yes.
Yes.
Motion passes. Next, we have action items, of which we have none tonight, but we do have extended study and discussion of our board progress monitoring report, Mastery of Reading Core Instruction, and Superintendent Whitney is here to give us that report.
Board President Brown, members of the board, before I get started with my report tonight, I did want to acknowledge that you just on the consent agenda approved the retirement of Dr. Bob Smart. So if we could give him a round of applause for his dedicated service to Pasco, I'd really appreciate it. Where did it go? Oh, well, please make sure someone tell him I acknowledged him. He was sitting right there when I walked by. I just walked by him. So I am pleased to be in front of you to talk about the Board Progress Monitoring Report for Mastery of Reading through Core Content, or core instruction. So I just wanted to give a little bit of background. You as a board have chosen to use the balanced governance model as your approach to evaluation of the superintendent. That evaluation model is really heavily grounded in two concepts: growth and consultancy. So the board governance model uses the superintendent's evaluation with growth and consultancy as a way to enhance the professional growth of the superintendent while also focusing on improvement in the district. The vehicle that you use to have these growth and consultancy-based conversations are board progress monitoring reports. So collaborative conversations are had while we do these reports around the pieces of our strategic plan that you as a board identified as a priority for you. We also have a policy that designates how board progress monitoring reports are done. District Policy 1260 calls out specifically the purpose of a board progress monitoring report, which is part of the broader work of the superintendent, and ensures that as a district, we're monitoring outcomes and impacts for all students. And then you as a board strive to make policy decisions based on our outrageous outcomes, our district strategic plan, and then again, our board progress monitoring report. So the District Policy 1260 also goes on to define how board progress monitoring reports are put together. They're required to designate what goal is being addressed, talk about whether the data that we're talking about is final data or interim data, talk about the timeline of the assessment, and then how the goals are how the report is connected to our goals and outcomes for the district. It also requires that we use a color coding system when talking about the data or the initiatives within the board progress monitoring report. Green means that we've met the goals or exceeding goals. Yellow means there's still work to be done, and red would mean that we're off track or haven't focused on it. So I just wanted to remind the board that our board progress monitoring reports and the superintendent evaluation is directly connected to our outrageous outcomes, which you can see here. Tonight, we're focused on 100% of third graders will read on grade level in their language of instruction. But what we don't often highlight and talk about is the entirety of the strategic plan, which is represented by this graphic, and I 100% understand that you can't read those words, so here's what they say. Under Goal 1, Mastery of Reading, again, 100% of our third graders will read on third grade, or read on level in third grade in their language of instruction, and specifically, you as a board identified Target 2, or the second bullet under that goal, that is focused on our multi-tiered systems of support, but specifically core instruction. And those tiny words you can't read say, we implement instruction aligned to the state standards using core materials focused on foundational skills in K2. So, I promised you when we were in front of you talking about multi-tiered systems of support, particularly the AIR audit findings, that we would be very intentional this year in showing you when we do reports around instruction or multi-tiered systems of support that we're very clear with where what we're talking about fits into the whole framework. The continuum of supports represented by the triangle is often what we think of when we talk about multi-tiered systems of support, but there's much more to a multi-tiered systems of support. The continuum of support is what is represented by the triangle. Core instruction is at the bottom of that triangle and is defined as and it's really foundational. It's the instruction that all kids get. So it's the green triangle, and then you see the yellow triangle and the red triangle layered on top of that. So every student gets access to core instruction, and it's the universal instruction that every student gets, and it's really the backbone of the way that our work is done. And it includes research-based strategies, comprehensive curriculum, instruction, differentiated instruction, assessment, and collaboration and communication. So the bottom line is the magic that happens between students and teachers in the classroom is how we move the needle around student achievement. As a district, it's our responsibility to provide high-quality materials, professional development, and the tools and systems that our teachers need, and the supports to make that lift as light as it can possibly be for our teachers. In our district, we adopted curriculum materials that we often refer to, you hear us talk about ARC materials. They stand for American Reading Company Materials. And as we've identified those materials to move the needle around our core instruction, we have worked with the company, ARC, to develop professional development, to set goals, and to monitor progress around implementing the core materials. So the consultants that come in and help us through ARC helped our district identify what are called AIM goals. So this slide represents the AIM for the 23-24 school year. So this data that I'm going to be sharing with you is what would be considered final data because it was from last year. So last year, you can see our AIM goals for both IRLA and ENEAL. So IRLA is the formative assessment that we give our students in literacy in English. IRLA is the one we do in Spanish. So you can see the goals there were to increase the number of proficient students, or the percentage of proficient students, and decrease the percentage of students that were in the emergency level in both in the IRLA and the ENEAL. On the, what's my right-hand side, on the rating of the goal progress, you can see that all of those areas for us are designated in yellow, which means that we're working on it, we have systems in place, but we didn't quite meet the target. Now, 3 of those areas, we made progress toward the goal, but we didn't quite make the goal. The only exception to that is the 22% proficient was actually a decrease in proficiency. And when we dug into that to figure out, well, why did that happen, what we realized was there was a misunderstanding about what level represented proficiency at the end of the year. So teachers were stopping their assessment before they were at the level that they needed to be considered on grade level at the end of the year, not because our students couldn't do it or there was some kind of academic regression. It was because there was just a misunderstanding. So there's been training provided to correct that misunderstanding. The graphs that I'm showing you here are really where the summary that I just talked to you about, where it comes from. And it is around, and again, this is final data. This is from June, kindergarteners in June of 23, those same students in June of 24. So these are cohort. You're comparing the same groups of students, kind of a year's progress. So what you would want to see on the rating of the goal progress is you would want to see a reduction of students in the emergency level or the red level, and an increase then in students at the at-risk level, or ultimately you want to see your students at the proficient level. So data sets that look like a negative at the emergency, a positive at the at-risk, and a positive at the proficient level is what we would want to see. So you can see at the first grade, and this data is the ERLA, so this is our data that is our kindergarten and first grade cohort with the English assessment, and this would have been kindergarten at the end of the year and then first grade at the end of the year. So you can see that this data is progressing exactly the way we would like to see it, where students are moving from emergency to at-risk to proficient. This is the same ERLA data, but this time for our first to second grade cohort. Again, you're seeing a reduction in emergency, additional kids in at-risk, and then additional students in proficient. And then the same for our second to third grade cohort. Again, a reduction at emergency, and then at-risk, an addition at risk and proficient.
A quick question, Superintendent Whitney. When we talk about proficiency, we're talking about grade level proficiency, not growth proficiency.
Correct.
So students are not only meeting growth, these are actually at grade level. So in the ERLA from kindergarten 2023 to first grade June 2024, we had 874 students who left kindergarten at emergency level, so they were reading very much below level, and then that number to proficient reading on grade level increased by 214 students that reading at proficient. Is that a correct assessment? Okay. Wow.
So the next sets of data that I'm going to walk through are the same data sets that I just described to you, except this time the assessments are in Spanish. Now what you see here is a little bit of a differentiation in what we thought we would see in terms of, you see a negative 55 in emergency, a plus at risk, and then a negative or a negative 97 at the proficient. You will see, and when we look at, so this is the K1 data, so kinder to first grade. Again, you have what we saw before was a negative in at-risk and then a plus. Now you're seeing a plus in emergency, a plus at risk, and a negative in proficiency. You're seeing the same thing at the first to second grade cohort, and the same thing at the second to third grade cohort. So then we have to ask ourselves, what happened? Why is that data looking different than the English data? So here's the factors that we believe influenced, here's the factors that influenced why the data looks like it does. There was a lack of clarity, like I said, regarding the proficiency level required for a student to be considered at or above proficiency level. These data that you're looking at require that teachers enter their data into a computer program called SchoolPace. And what we noticed is that there was inconsistency with the timing of when that data was happening, and then if that data entry was happening. There was also a misunderstanding around how the baseline testing procedures worked. There was inconsistent communication regarding the data entry protocol, and a misunderstanding again of advancing students from level to level. So what you're noticing here is implementation and systems corrections that need to be made. What you're not seeing here is regression in academic progress, and I will show you with some STAR data at the end why we know that's the case. So then I also provided for you the goals we're working on right now. So these are interim. This is the aim that we have for the 24-25 school year. So the data on the charts that you're looking at subsequently are not complete. These are the students right now that were kindergartners last year, so their kindergarten data in November, and then their first graders this year, their November data. So we haven't completed their year yet. So this is just where that group of students is as of November of this year. So they'll still make progress toward the end of the year, so that's why this is interim data. It's not finished yet. Does that make sense, how it's different than the last set of data? Okay. So again, this really is just for your information at this point. It's interim data. We fully expect that kids will continue to make progress. We are seeing a reduction in the number of students in at-risk. We're seeing kids moving into the proficient level. This, the current second graders, you're seeing that data trend that we like to see where it's a negative in emergency, a plus in at-risk, and a plus in proficient. Again, this is the ERLA data, so these are our students that are being assessed in English. And again, from second to third. And then this is the ENEAL, so these are students who are being assessed in Spanish. Our current first graders, where their data was in kinder, and then where they are this year. So again, that negative, the negative number of moving kids out of emergency into at-risk and into proficient. And then first grade to second. And then finally, second to third. So we are looking again to see what factors are we noticing in the data. We know that there is an increase in teacher understanding of the assessment protocol. We're still working on clarifying and kind of calibrating data entry and communications around how to use school PACE. We've had to provide limited professional development opportunities, or there's been limited professional development opportunities for new and long-term substitute teachers, and that's an area we need to focus on so that, because we do have substitutes that are in classrooms for an extended period of time for people who are on extended leaves. They may or may not have gotten training on how to use ARC, and if they're in the classroom for half of a year or more, they definitely need training on how to implement the materials. So that's an area of focus for us as a system. And then ongoing professional development has been happening for administrators and instructional coaches and teachers around strengthening the application of practice of implementation of ARC materials. So I know that I said to you just a few slides ago that we're confident that this is an implementation focus for us, not a student achievement regression focus for us, because when you look at those same groups of students and you look at their STAR data, you can see that they're progressing from fall to fall. So when you look at the second grade students, their data may show, their ERLA or ENEAL data may show that there's fewer kids in the proficient level. Well, we know that's an implementation issue because when you look at their same data on the STAR, that same group of kids is progressing on the STAR. So they're certainly not losing reading skills because they can demonstrate on another assessment that they're making progress. And so I summarize that progress for you on this slide. And this is our students by cohort, their fall of 23 to fall of 24. And this is the students who were tested in English. And then you see that same-ish trend of progress. You do have a couple of grade levels where their proficiency is more flat, but you definitely don't see a regression in our students' ability to read based on the STAR data. So I can already, so I do want to finish up by showing this short video about our ARC implementation, and then I will entertain any questions, and my friend Carla Lobos is here to help me, and Leanna Maker and Wendy LP. So I have friends. I can phone a friend for questions. So take a look at this.
The benefits from using this material is that it guides you. One big clap. It tells me what I need to be teaching each student depending on their needs. We're trying to have our students be biliterate by the end of high school, by the time they're moving to a certain level. Do you want to read yours? Hello, I'm Guadalupe Rivera, a third grade bilingual teacher here at Emerson Elementary. Okay, boys and girls, the students who did not finish, guess what? We're going to continue on Monday because we're not done. The ARC Core Curriculum is a curriculum that we're using this year that was introduced to us, and it's a way to guide teachers to teach by the standards, but also it provides different strategies that could help students in their learning, and it's modified in different students' needs, and it's in bilingual and in English. Can we all say Norte America? Norte America. Can we say it in English? North America. Depending on the students, we do an initial testing at the beginning of the year, and that guides us to see what books we provide the students for what groups they're going to be in reading. After that, we work with them for a week or a month goal, and then we check with them weekly. And then if the student is able to pass the power goal of that we set for that student, that we talked about it, then he continues, keeps moving up to the next level.
Hi, my name is Giovanni and I'm a third grader at Emerson Elementary. My teacher's name is Rivera and I like best about her because she sometimes comes with cool shoes. It makes me think if I would ever have those kind of shoes.
Hey, can you come over here?
She helps us reading by going from different words to a new word.
Giovanni, can you show us your card and tell us
I like to read about like funny books and also books that entertain me. It could usually get way too funny that I laugh too hard, and then when I stop laughing, I'm like...
Duro, ¿verdad? Okay. ¿Y qué está pasando en esta aquí? ¿Me puedes leer? Right now we're focusing on the marine ocean, the life of the animals that live in the ocean. So the students get to choose their animal and they get to do research. So it gives them multiple scaffolding different books that they could use either in English or in Spanish.
We do marine life animals. I know a lot. I know that they use their gills because it would help them breathe.
What does she do? What does the female do? The female turtle. The resources that we have online, we could assess a material. Say, also has the data. We could see how the students are doing individually, but also we could use it for our small groups and worksheets that are modified to the students' needs. You write what you learned today. Give it a try. If you have questions, ask questions. It makes life easier. It's more time efficient. Why come up with something new when we have the material? Okay, next person. Students love it. They're able to do it their own, and they're able to show what their interest is, and they're taking more accountability in their learning. Thumbs up if you agree. Yay. And my students love it, and I did too.
So our next step is to align our ARC materials to the MTSS framework based on the error audit recommendations that we presented to you. We're going to continue our focus on full implementation of the ARC materials. 94% of our schools are between partial and full implementation of ARC. We are going to continue to provide ARC coaching for district administrators, principals, and teachers. Our instructional coaches are available to help based on teacher need. And we are studying and implementing the concepts from a book called Leading with Focus by Mike Schmoker, which is really truly about getting very, very narrow in our focus. And it really is about simplicity and clarity and relentless focus on the basics, which is solid core instructional delivery for kids every day for 180 days. I mean, I think sometimes we think it's something fancy and there's like fireworks that goes with this. This is high quality teaching, a high quality teacher standing up in front of kids delivering rigorous lessons every day. And our job, like I said, is to support our teachers in making that very heavy lift as light as it can be. And this book is helping us reframe our thinking. And it's been challenging because everything feels important and everything feels urgent. And so we need to get really narrowly focused on those things that we know will move the needle. We also are working on supporting utilization of school pace to drive district administrator and principal collaboration. So at the very end of the video, you could see the teacher kind of scrolling through on her computer and it looked like there was a chart there. That's actually what is generated out of school pace. And it's complicated for a teacher to sit and listen to a kid read and then putting the data in the computer. And so it is a lot to get used to, but there's a lot of power in having that centralized location for the data to go to help teachers make decisions about what they want to do next, but also to help us as principals and district staff know how we can focus and help those that are doing the heavy lifting of educating kids in Pasco every day. So with that, I am again going to ask my friends that do this work every day to be ready. I'll answer the questions I can, but invite our experts to answer those that I can't.
Do we have any comments or questions from the board?
It seemed like the third grades seemed to be a level that was really struggling more than some of the others. If you have any thoughts on why that might be?
So again, the ERLA and ENEAL data, I think we have to be a little bit careful about saying those kids are struggling because we have some systems implementation questions. Part of what happens as kids move through too that are in our dual language classrooms is they're tested in both English and Spanish. And one of the things that we need to make sure we have good systems in place for is to making sure that those students' data is getting entered into the computer for both their English and their Spanish assessment. So that's a piece we need to clean up before we can truly determine whether or not it's an actual third grade reading, that third graders are having more difficulty with proficiency in reading, or do we have systems implementation issues to clean up at the third grade?
So when we talk about systems implementation issues, I know that like not having available subs to have teachers go to PD on how to accurately administer the assessments is an issue, as well as newly hired teachers who weren't part of Pasco when the curriculum was adopted, and so didn't get to take part in that initial coaching on how to do it. And then, as you say, just a misunderstanding. And so with all of those barriers, I guess, in place, how do we move forward to make sure that we do have accurate data in the future, knowing that it's going to be difficult to offer professional development, to get a sub in the classroom, and that we'll have a continually have new teachers coming to the district who haven't taught ARC before? It's a difficult question, and I'm putting you in a difficult spot.
Well, I think it's a complicated question. I think you've highlighted the complexity of the work that we do, right? So I think you've summarized the complexity well. I think you know it well because you live it as a teacher. I think you know it better than anyone. That is why we have an ongoing relationship with our ARC coaches that are coming on an interval. Our instructional coaches help with that. And the support of being able to look at the school-paced data where a principal supervisor like a Valerie Autogon is sitting side by side with a principal looking at their school-paced data and offering her support in coaching and then systems realignment. And then not to mention Leanne and Wendy and Carla, having district staff mobilized around helping provide those pieces that you just mentioned are ways that we're working to alleviate those barriers.
I mean, yes, it's definitely something that I've seen and have in my own classroom of getting new assessment materials and understanding, especially it's not just have the kids sit in front of a computer and answer questions. It's if the student answers this way, then it means this, and if they pass this level, then it's going on to the next text. And so I've administered assessments like that, and I have had them have been given contradictory instructions as well. And so it's difficult if there is a changing goalpost, but has the goalpost always been the same in Pasco? This is how we do it. This is how we administer. This is what our vision is for how you administer. Am I making sense?
As we have implemented ARC, we have all learned together about those pieces of ARC that need to be in place. So, I don't know that we came right out of the gate with exactly the way, and never moved a goalpost. I think we've learned things and had to shift the systems. I think this is our third year. So, if you look at the data to be in third year in implementation, that's a pretty accelerated implementation. It can take 5 to 7 years for full implementation of curriculum. So I think the progress we've made so far is evidence of systems commitment from teachers to district staff to art consultants. So I am certain that over the 3 years, we've had to go back and say, wow, we thought that this was going to work this way, and we've had to change and modify, and all of those pieces take recalibration. Literacy instruction is complicated. If you have 30 kids in your class, you're almost guaranteed to have 30 different needs, and in some of our classes, kids are learning 2 languages, right? So it is probably some of the most complicated work teachers do. I don't know if I'm getting to the heart of your question. Implementation is messy, and it's not a straight line. You're going to have kind of bumps along the way, but what we want to see is that overall upward trajectory over time, and I think you're starting to see that in our data.
Thank you. Any additional questions or comments?
We implemented this 2 years ago. We started the process of implementing that.
Yeah, this is our 3rd year, correct?
3rd year? Okay. So you feel the data is showing an upward trend? Because when I look at the data now, based on my limited understanding of the data and what we're seeing here, it seems kind of like to me that it's all over the board a little bit. Between students moving from emergency to out at risk to proficient, it just kind of seems it's mismatched. And is that just, I guess what we're saying is because of the progress or the steps that we need to take to rectify these issues is what I'm understanding is the cause of that. And you're feeling that could probably maybe we'll see more consistent data versus what we're seeing kind of right now. I mean, and maybe I'm wrong in what I'm seeing here, but it does seem kind of inconsistent for grade levels and between Spanish, English. It's not really a question.
I'm not sure I understand your question.
But you should,
yes,
you,
Mr.
you
Simmons.
said yes. So I guess that
I mean, I'm not sure what your question is. I want to be helpful and supportive, but I'm not sure how in this moment.
I guess my thing is that I see the data kind of just all over the board, and maybe it's not. Maybe I'm not fully understanding the data completely or what the issues are causing it to be like that. And maybe this is good. Maybe this is what we want to see. I guess my question was, as long as you feel that the things that you've identified that are causing this data is what are causing these disparities is what we need to work on, then that's I guess my.
Yeah, so I guess let's go back to the data set or the aim that is complete, right? So I showed you this was the aim that's completed. So I showed you 23-24 at the end of the year. This is the aim that's completed. The other data I showed you, we're in progress still. It's just interim. This is where we are now. So when you look at this, we did not meet our goals, but in 3 of the 4 areas, we made progress toward our goals. And we know why we didn't meet our goals. And it was not a student reading proficiency issue, it's a systems implementation issue. So, and we know that because when then you look at our STAR data, sorry, I'm making you car sick, I apologize. You are seeing an upward trajectory by cohort. So between those 2 pieces of information, I feel confident that we are moving in the right direction.
Well, I'm glad that we have the multiple data sets so that we can see that there is progress on STAR. STAR is a reliable assessment for literacy in English and Spanish. I think unfortunately just until we get the implementation a little bit more honed in, we can see, we'll have to kind of take this with a grain of salt, but I think we can still say that there is growth based on IRLA and ENIL because teachers are administering the assessments in a way that does show growth, but not the absolute growth, that they didn't continue to assess all the way. If they were supposed to give an additional assessment, which would have put the student at a higher level, then there would have shown more growth, most students on grade level, but that just wasn't done.
And that is not a teacher problem that is a systems issue that we have now corrected. So I want to be really clear about that, you know, we're not saying our teachers have done anything wrong. Our teachers are working really hard to implement materials that are very complicated in a system that's really complicated. And once we identified a systems issue, we've taken steps to correct that. So I just want to be really clear about that. And again, this is the third year of implementation of a set of materials that is very complicated. And people are working really hard to implement them with fidelity. And it is fidelity of implementation. That's what it takes to move the needle for students.
Thank you for the clarification.
Can I ask one more question? It's just, you know, when I know we had a study session based on this a while back. Some of the teachers there had expressed some, I don't want to say reluctance to it, but just maybe it's because it was new. Do you think that has anything to do with maybe some of this data, or just, you know, that you're seeing, maybe the reason why the data is not being input at the right time, or any of that? Do you think that has anything to do with it, or is it just kind of a learning curve with the teachers in general as well?
Yeah, no, I think it's a great question. I believe every teacher in our district wants to do the right thing for kids. And I think the reasons that doesn't happen vary, and that we meet every individual where they are and help them get where they need to be, just like we expect students to do that for kids. And between the art consultants, our instructional coaches, our district staff that collaborate with our principals, there is a person in this organization that can help everyone move from where they are today with ARC implementation from, you know, that next step of progress, and then ultimately to full implementation.
The third graders, they would have been in COVID
Oh,
their
that's a
kindergarten
great
year?
question. I don't think so.
This is last year's third graders. Last year's fourth graders went into, so this year's fifth graders went into kindergarten, and they were the ones that, in the 1920 school year, who then had most of their school year in distance learning.
Yeah.
So that last
I'm not
year's-
good at doing that on my feet, so thank you.
Yeah. So
That's
last year's
the
third
third
graders.
graders here is the one that kind of concerns me, but
last year's third graders would have been in hybrid learning in kindergarten. So they would have gone to school in person for the majority of the year. For part of it. Am I doing my math right?
I don't. I'm not participating in this conversation because I can't remember what I did yesterday, so I
It's
apologize.
a crazy time.
Yeah.
Okay. Speaking from putting on my teacher hat, it's difficult to and kind of disheartening to to not know like everything that you need to do in order to give an accurate assessment. So I just and then to realize that maybe you didn't do it correctly, and that you had that could have affected the data in a way. And so I, as much as I want to say yes, the district is doing good things, I want to also like really emphasize that I hope that we do implement like across the board, whether we need to train principals so they can train their staff during staff time, like staff professional development in the building. I just appreciate that we've identified that there is a systems issue here, and that we're rectifying it. But I'm just putting myself in the teacher's place of that it's like not understanding exactly what to do, and then that it feels really horrible to not know that or that you didn't do something correctly. And so I'm looking forward to hearing how the district will continue to train teachers to give the assessment so we can see the data.
Thank you.
All right. That was Mr. Sital. Before you begin, I'm going to ask really quickly if anyone here in the boardroom would like to give public comment in regards to our extended study discussion on board progress monitoring report, mastery of reading and core instruction. If you would please step up to the podium and speak into the microphone. And if you wouldn't mind restating your name and affiliation with the district.
James Hales, I live in the school district. I just had a question about how incoming students moving into the district and students moving out of the districts affects the numbers that are in that. Are they filtered out or are they included in that?
Thank you.
Their data is all included. If they come from a district that they're also using ARC, their data gets migrated into our system. So if you are a student that comes and joins today, tomorrow we'll have access to your data, as accurate as it is, yeah.
But if they come from a district that does not use
Right.
ARC, we
Then
wouldn't
that's
have
where
their
we
data.
want to look at the kiddos and assess them using the Erlen and the Anil, either one, whichever language of instruction they're in. But I do want to add that, so we have metrics where throughout the year, it's benchmarked to say, like, we want the kids to make at least a month's worth of growth throughout the year so that they make that year's worth of growth. So every month, it's benchmarked out, and we'll have where our metrics will change. So part of the issue with some of the data that you're seeing is the metrics may have changed the day before we ran the day before the data was run. So for example, second grade metric, they might have had to be at a new level in order to be considered proficient at that time, and the teacher, because they weren't ready to assess those kids yet, because it's an ongoing thing, if I feel like you need to be assessed because you're demonstrating these different strategies and behaviors to me that I need to assess you, then I'm going to assess them. So it has to do with that too. The metrics will often change throughout the year, and that helps us look at the data to say, where are our kids and in relation to being proficient at the end of the year, because that's where we want them to be. So it's kind of an ongoing thing. So, and then the other thing I wanted to point out too is there are protocols and cards that teachers have. Everything is laid out for them to be able to give those assessments. They are difficult, and teachers are quick. I sit in on a lot of the trainings. Teachers are very quick to say, oh my gosh, I wasn't ready to benefit from that. I'd heard that before, or it might have been new learning depending on where they are. So there's a lot of things that we have in place, and in fact, ARC is here. We have some of our ARC coaches here from the company. They're out in buildings. If you would like to meet me somewhere, I would love to take you around to see what's going on.
Thanks, Leanne.
Is there anyone else in the boardroom who'd like to give comments? Anyone online, Mr. Garrett? Okay. Mr. Sital, thank you. Our next report is Washington State Clean Building Performance Standards.
Board President Brown, Superintendent Whitney, members of the board. Before I begin tonight's Board Appreciation Night, I would like to say thank you to all of you for the many hours of service you provide our community, our students, and our staff. Thank you. I am here today to present an overview of the Washington Clean Building Performance Act and to briefly outline our district strategy for implementing a formal plan to efficiently monitor and manage energy use across our buildings. Adopted in 2019, the Clean Buildings for Washington Act, also known as House Bill 1257, establishes energy performance requirements for all Tier 1 commercial buildings over 50,000 square feet. The bill sets specific compliance deadlines and requires building owners to take proactive steps to reduce their energy usage. This table shows the breakdown of the requirements for buildings between 20,000 and 220,000 square feet, along with their corresponding compliance reporting dates. We are working with our consultant, Engineering Economic Inc., EEI, and today the Chief Engineer, David Okada, is here present with us. Our first objective was to audit Chihuahua and Pasco High to ensure accurate energy use reporting. Both high schools are over 220,000 square feet. In addition, we are updating our energy management plan with new benchmarks and standards to track and manage our energy usage. As of December 2024, we've completed the initial energy benchmarks for our district buildings in compliance with the Washington Clean Building Performance Act, as mandated by House Bill 1257. In this slide, column 3, with the red values titled WNEUI, represents annual energy use per square foot for the buildings, for each building. The fourth column shows the energy use intensity target, or EUI small t. The EUI small t number is the target for each building to meet compliance. The recent energy assessment for Pasco High School provides a detailed breakdown of energy consumption across key areas of the building, helping us identify where energy is most heavily used and where improvements can be made to meet the state energy performance targets. Currently, Pasco High energy use intensity is 58.7, while the target is 53.9. The initial strategies to reduce energy consumption depends both on building staff and operations team. The second bar is a team effort where we will need engagement from building staff to reduce plug loads. This includes items like mini fridges and microwaves that have been brought into the building. The reduced height of the purple section is a conservative 15% savings target, but more savings is possible. The third bar represents HVAC commissioning or system tune-ups, along with schedule adjustments to improve HVAC efficiencies by optimizing performance and aligning system operations with pre-COVID schedules. And finally, the third bar represents upgrading lighting to LEDs, shown in yellow. This slide represents the Chihuahua High School energy data, showing how energy is used across different areas of the building. Currently, the energy use intensity for Chihuahua is 73.1, with our energy intensity target is 53.9. We'll be using the same initial strategies as Pasco High School to reduce energy consumption. In this slide are the specific portfolio timelines relevant to our middle and elementary school. We'll start our elementary and middle school in the summer or after. Next steps. In conclusion, our goal is to be compliant with the Clean Building Act by leveraging state grants, standardizing our energy management plan, and prioritizing energy upgrades in future budgets. This concludes our presentation, or my presentation.
Assistant Superintendent Sital, I was on the slide with the energy use intensity EUI numbers. Yeah. There are different colors for these numbers. What accounts for the red versus the orange versus the blue numbers? Or the colors, I'm sorry, for the numbers.
The green colors means that they've met target. And the yellow, orange, whatever that color is, those are the new building codes. They're brand new buildings from 2019 or 2016, so they have a different target. And then the ones in red are they're older buildings.
So like Pasco High has an orange, so Pasco High School got a different code or metric? The 58.7 is in orange?
Can I get Mr. David O'Connor?
So in general, the numbers that are in the red are the ones that are furthest from the target. So there's most work to do in those buildings. The ones that are in the orange or goldenrod color are closer. They're in a sort of a more, I guess, less of a lift to achieve the target by their deadline.
And then another question, Board President Brown. Under the timeline slide for the elementary schools, pending funding for the elementary schools, do you have an idea of where possible funding could be found for the elementary schools?
Yes, currently we're working on grants, on state grants with the Department of Commerce. We'll have one due in 2 weeks. The Department of Commerce, the federal government has released a whole bunch of money for these projects throughout the state, so it's just a matter of us doing the grants and looking for funding.
These grants are federal?
Yes.
All of them are?
The ones that we're applying to currently, yes, they're available.
I see. And so the funding that's allocated for the middle schools are federal grants as well?
Yes. We currently have funding for the middle schools from our last grant, so we're going to continue applying for the elementary.
Do we currently have our hands on the funding for the middle schools?
Currently, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
I just want to ask why Franklin is considerably higher than all of the other schools away from the target.
Well, as an elementary school, we're looking for, again, the evaluation and assessments on the benchmarks, but that's what is being used currently. Right now, we're looking at the 220,000 square feet and higher, which is Pasco High and Shawana, and then we'll move into the middle schools and then elementary schools.
Do we have so that number is just how much energy is being used in general at these schools?
Correct.
Okay, that makes more sense.
And Three Rivers has no number.
I'm not sure why we don't have a number for Three Rivers at this time.
Okay.
Is there a tier 2 for our smaller buildings?
Yes. The tier 2 is a 20,000 square feet to 49,000 square feet. That's a tier 2.
So do we have data for those as well, or not yet?
We're not there yet, no. We're looking at the 220,000 square feet and higher, which is our big comprehensive high schools, because that's due first in '26. And then we'll move from there to the 90 to 220, which is our middle schools.
But does HB 1257 do they require reporting metrics for buildings with less than 50,000 square feet? We don't have to meet certain metrics under the House bill, right?
Under the House bill, we'll have to go up to 50,000 to 220,000, yes.
So if it's under 50,000, then we don't have energy requirements?
Yes, we'll have energy requirements because that's the booth piece. And that's, we will have energy requirements and numbers for the booth. But at this time, we do not have it.
Okay, but the law requires that for
Yes.
even for those small buildings, we have to have requirements.
So the tier 2 buildings were added on to the building performance standards in a second state law. And that happened subsequently, and they have basically energy reporting requirements, which is the benchmarking part, but they don't have a energy target to hit. So that's why in 2017, in 2027, you're required to have an energy management plan, an operation and maintenance plan, and your benchmarking, but you're not getting compared against an energy target like a tier 1 building would be. That makes sense.
Thank you, David.
Do we have any idea how close Sageview will be on these requirements?
No, we haven't tested Sageview yet.
Are you fairly positive that with these conservation measures that we can get the target down to the projections in the slides?
I would say yes. Before COVID, with our scheduling pieces, we were already underneath, right? So once we went to this COVID scheduling that we had to run 24/7, all our facilities are running 24/7, we're going back to the schedules of what we had before. So with some of the pieces that I've just mentioned, we should be fine.
And then on both of the comprehensive high schools, the big red area on the bottom says space heat. are that space heaters? Is that like floor heaters that are in like what does that mean?
That's just the heat of the building, the boilers
Okay.
running, things
So
like
just heat,
that. Yes.
not specifically space heaters.
Correct.
Okay.
Do you believe that, well, actually, so the grants that we have currently for the middle schools for those larger than 50,000 square feet, do you think any of those grants, we could reapply for those grants in the future for those smaller, under 50,000 square foot buildings?
Correct, yes.
So those grants can be used for either size of tier 1 or tier 2?
Correct. And we're applying for specific pieces. Once we get to that grant, we'll apply for the specific piece to do the smaller elementaries, yes.
And how long do we have? And then those grants, what's the expiration date for the grants? 1-year grant or?
Well, it depends on the projects that we're having. This next grant that we're writing is for $1 million to do some stuff at Pasco High School and look at the middle schools and really redo the commissioning at the middle schools. Look at all the HVAC systems, the heating, cooling. So yes.
One more question I had real quick was, so with these upgrades and things that we're going to be doing, but then we're also kind of considering, we're talking about the next bond and maybe either whatever we're going to do with these schools. Are we going to run into any scheduling or issues with deadlines or applying for grants that maybe?
Well, the process we're hoping to is continue with our operations for the district, right? We're going to improve the district is what we're doing, and through funds, like the piece with Chihuahua, the lighting. The lighting at Chihuahua is not going anywhere, so Chihuahua is going to be here for a while. So we're going to continue evaluating those comments. How much money do we spend on per building? And once we get the guidance from you of what is it that we want to do in the next 4 years or the next bond, we'll evaluate what is it the building, which building are we reassessing or reapplying or rebuilding, and then we'll focus on how much funds we spend on that building. So it really depends on your words and your advice that you give us.
So the question I have is, I guess, so we have deadlines here.
Yes.
But then we also have our own planning that we're doing at the district level. Could there possibly be an overlap or?
There will be an overlap. And the State Department of Commerce, they understand that we are moving towards the plan, and we're continuing to build the plan, and we're continuing to meet the requirements. If we get to a date that it's not, because we're, as long as we're continuing that we are providing the energy conservation program and what we're trying to get done to meet those deadlines.
So let me just pose a hypothetical. What if we make some of these, like for instance, Pasco, say we make some of these changes and we meet this deadline, but then we also approve a bond to maybe replace the school, just hypothetically. So was that, is that, I guess the money's through a grant, so it doesn't really.
Well, regardless of the money through the grant, say we replace the HVAC systems at Pasco High. What we'll do is we'll take them and we'll put them away and reuse them. There's parts in them. We could use it for a different building. Our operations team, our maintenance team, we take things that are old and we part them out. So there's many things we can do with some equipment we buy.
And the penalties associated with House Bill 1257, those are financial fines that the state of Washington will levy against the school district if we fail to meet the benchmarks?
That's what the benchmark says. And having conversation with OSPI, and because these are kind of unfunded mandates, right? So it's like, where are we going to be with the penalties? And so far, what they're telling us is, as long as you're moving forward in working with the energy codes and developing standards and meeting the benchmarks, the fines might not have an issue with the district.
So these are state mandated, but federally granted? So we're
Correct.
obtaining, so the state has they're unfunded completely?
Okay, let me rephrase it. They provide guidance, right? So they provide staff guidance. To say that they're not supporting us, it would be not right. So they support with staffing, but not with funds.
Are we able to obtain, what's the word I'm thinking of? Kind of a continuance, even based on if we're going to be running a bond and possibly approving funds to replace a school, hypothetically, can you get a continuance so that you guys can keep operating at that without meeting that deadline yet, knowing that in the future we will?
And that's what, once we decide, we can meet with them and say, hey, here's our next bond, this is what we have budgeted in the next bond. So we'll have avenues to not get fined, but to continue with this energy code, with the benchmarks, to continue adding to the benchmarks and meeting the benchmarks. So they're not such a deadline that if you don't make it here, we're going to bring the helicopters on. I think they're having conversations with us, and they're pretty open to ideas of where is it. But the first part is we got to have the standards and the benchmarks and update our plan to make sure that it looks to code, and we're doing that so far. We turned in the paperwork in December, so they understand that we are preparing to move forward with our benchmarks and standards.
Maybe this is a question for Superintendent Whitney, but or perhaps something we should be thinking about as we talk about our facility management plan. But would it be prudent to have a energy efficiency section to the facility management plan, perhaps regarding this law, or perhaps future energy efficiency laws that the legislature enacts?
It depends on the board's purpose for the long-term facilities management plan. So to this point, the long-term facilities management plan has been focused on schools that need modernized or built through bond by planning and passing bonds. If the board's intent is to direct staff to also build in like energy efficiency projects into bonds, then that would be the place for that to go, is in the long-term facilities management plan. You could also direct staff to create a like deferred maintenance section in the plan that we would fund out of grants or our budget. So it just depends on what the board's intention is for the long-term facilities management plan.
If we had that in the current facilities management plan, would that have been any benefit to you, Superintendent Sital, and your work on this project?
Because we already have a plan, so probably not, in the sense that we already have a management plan, we're updating it, and we've had an energy plan in the district for many, many years. Mr. John Weatherby's here, he's our guru, been doing energy projects for at least the last 30 years, and has partners, and we have lots of partners. Frank PUD is a great partner for energy. So yes, so we continuously evaluate and look at our energy facilities for energy purposes.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll continue with our operation piece.
So, do another hypothetical. What if the federal grant funding dries out or is no longer available to us to apply for? What do we do to make sure our elementary schools are meeting the state requirements for energy efficiency without grant
We'll
funding?
continue using our district budget and ensure that our district budget is part of this process, to ensure that we are using our district funds and collaborating with our budget pieces to ensure that it's just what we're doing now. What can we do as far as our district budget, our operations budget, to address some of these pieces?
Can our budget, for just the elementary schools, could our budget absorb that for just elementary schools?
No, I don't mean to disagree with Mr. Sital, but if we don't have grant funding, it will put tremendous pressure on the local budget that's already under pressure. So the extent to which these continue to be unfunded mandates, either by the federal government or the state, it will make it very challenging for districts to comply with this law. So I think that's where we need to do some legislative advocacy around this particular unfunded mandate. This is where it might then make sense to build it into the long-term facilities management plan where you do energy efficient upgrades to every elementary, and you build it in at a multi-million-dollar line item in a bond. The downside to that is there are people who feel like that isn't something that should be kind of financed over 30 years. So it's this balance of how do we pay for this where it's the right thing to pay for it. But our local budget is we are struggling to maintain academic programs for kids. So every time there's a mandate like this from the state that requires us to prioritize dollars to replace light bulbs or whatever this is going to require us to do, we are at a point where we make decisions between doing that and offering academic programs for kids.
And there,
I think Mr. Sital is being very exactly what he should do as a leader, saying, I'm going to make this work for you. I'm saying as a superintendent, this will be very challenging to do out of the district's budget if we're required to do it with the funds we already have or don't have.
And just to confirm, there is a request mechanism for an extension or not in the law?
Yes.
So we can request an extension.
And as long as we continue doing the plan, right? We adopted the benchmarks, here's what we're doing. As long as you're moving forward, right? You cannot do anything, but as long as you're doing forward, here's what we're doing. We can justify the process we're taking and the evaluations of benchmarks, doing our plan, and yes.
So just to clarify that, you're talking about an extension. We can get an extension as long as we show progress towards.
Correct.
It's like, and they decide, and the state decides how long that extension is.
Correct.
So it's not outlined in the law?
No.
Okay. So really, the federal grant funding is really critical here.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Sital, for fielding all of our questions and for your report. Next on the agenda, we have our State of the Schools review preparation from Assistant Superintendent Goebel.
So I too want to extend my gratitude for your leadership. As I was sitting there, I was thinking about 2 years ago, we had Steve Pemberton here to talk about the lighthouse effect, the human lighthouse effect. And he talked about how that as individuals, but I know for me, we talk about as a school district that we truly are the beacon of hope for our community. And that each one of you do that for us, but also out in the community. So thank you for your how you volunteer to support our students. So I wanted to say that. So good evening, President Brown, Superintendent Whitney, and members of the board. Tonight, I'm honored to present the 2025 State of the Schools Review. Seems like I was just here talking about this, and here we are a year later. So to provide some background, this graphic has been shared by Superintendent Whitney with multiple groups such as principals and leadership teams. It serves really as a guiding framework, providing direction and clarity and alignment in our work from the classroom all the way to the district office. The purpose of the State of the Schools Review really is to give school board and the district leaders opportunities to listen, observe, and ensure our efforts are aligned and calibrated to meet our shared goals and educating students. Ultimately, our role is to really support school teams who are really in the arena doing the hard work, as we heard today, with literacy implementation and such, and really hands-on work every day. So it's for us to go and listen and learn. And I know now all of you have participated in at least one last year, so which is good. Last year we had some of you, it was brand new. So the State of the Schools Review serves to connect the dots between our outrageous outcomes and each school's improvement plans by highlighting data alignments. We hold profound aspirations within our 5 outrageous outcomes. And really the critical question is that how do we accurately measure the progress toward these goals and effectively monitor their impact at the school level. The State of the Schools review provides an opportunity for school teams to share their school improvement efforts and strategies and make connections to how their work is aligned with the PASCO strategic plan, but also across the board, a horizontal alignment between school to school also. My goal this evening is to really outline what you can expect as we move through this important process. So Pasco School District has long utilized plan, do, study, adjust, which is really the cycle of continuous improvement. It's a best practice for school improvement to implement and monitor school improvement efforts. The planning phase for the current school year actually began last June and continued through August. During this time, school principals and district leadership teams and the school site teams engaged in several days of collaborative learning, analyzing data, and developing initial goals for improvement. As shown in this timeline, it's a cycle of improvement. Each phase of the process is guided by a series of thoughtful and really probing questions, really designed to challenge school teams to think about, is it working? If it's not, what else can we do? So in October, all the school improvement plans were due. Right now, schools are engaged in what I call a study and adjust. And now the part of the process is for them to do a presentation around state of the schools for us and also for their building school teams as well. So let me share the structure for the upcoming presentation, which included both individual site-based presentations and group presentations. We're actually replicating what we did last year, so this is a reminder. We've learned from it because last year was the first year we actually tried this structure and we made modifications. We learned quickly what was working, what was not. And we actually made additional improvements to make the process efficient. Also, you're getting the information that you need as well. So the individual site-based presentations, it will be 30-minute presentations, which actually will conclude with that important question is how can we support? So this is not we're not there to like pepper them with questions about that, but at the end of their presentation, how can, as a district staff and a board, support their efforts? The principals have selected their preferred dates. They've already signed up, and I will be, actually, Ms. Richardson will be sending you an email. We have, I think, one school that we need to adjust the time. The first site-based presentation actually happens on, I think, February 24th. So you have a month, and we want you to get signed up as soon as possible. I know the school principals really look forward to seeing you at the sites. So district leaders will also sign up, and 2 school board members can sign up for each of the site presentations. So look for that calendar this week. We're ready to send it out, so you can sign up for that. The group presentation, these will take place during the board study sessions, and these are already scheduled. In each session, 3 schools will present. Last year, we tried 4, and that was a lot. So, and part of the reason we did it because we ran out of study sessions by the time we implemented. We actually secured 4 study sessions, so there will be 3 schools presenting, which will be helpful. The exception is the last one. I think there was a value in all 4 middle schools present at the same day. So other than that, so it'll go 3, 3, 3, and 4. So that's the plan. And we'll do the same format. You'll rotate through each table 20 minutes. They'll share data, and I'm going to talk about we made improvements on that, how we're going to share our data. But more importantly, their school improvement plan, the strategies they're utilizing to actually make improvements as well as monitoring student learning. So here are the dates for the 4 study sessions. You could see the school names of when they're presenting. And the 12 individual sites, they have already signed up, and those sites that will actually go to their schools, and the school team will actually do the presentations. What we have decided to do, make sure that these presentations we want it to be consistent, but not identical. So for data presentation last year, parts of it was really clunky because there's too many data, too many pages to flip through. So we're going to actually create a data one-pager. We love one-pagers. When things are on one page with that is consistent. And what I'm going to ask school teams to do is rather than showing the data on the slides, that they actually do a summary of the data. on the slide. So you're going to see words while you're looking at the one-pager of the data for each of the schools. And so that's the modification that we're going to make, and I think it will make, because unless you live and breathe data all the time, seeing slide after slide of data, it's hard. So we want to make sure that it is actually consumable for you, but also is easy to explain by the school team. So that's the improvement that we're going to make. So we're going to start this process soon. Are there any questions that I can entertain and answer for you guys?
I just want to make a comment real quick. I really enjoy the State of the School reviews. I think they're pretty critical, for a myriad of reasons. One, for the school to present their data and to show us, how they're doing, and to request of us anything that we can, do to help them. But also because it allows us, one, to be at the brick and mortar school, to be in the facility. Two, probably more important, even so when we meet here, is to meet the staff.
Right.
And to get to know them. And that puts us on a one-on-one, especially when we're sitting there here
That's right.
or in front of them. Like it kind of puts us in a vulnerable spot. They are presenting to us, and we're in their domain, even when we're sitting here. So I realized the value when I first got on the board, how those State of the School reviews, how important they are.
Yeah,
So I appreciate the effort that the district goes to doing that. And I understand it takes time out of the school staff, the teachers, the administrative staff here. So I appreciate it. The only one question I did have is, how do we determine is it by request the school wants to do it in person or here? How do they?
No, I actually assigned them. So last year I split half and half, and then this year I just swapped them. So every other year you will either be SI. So the schools that who are you going to go into, you didn't go to them. They were actually in person. So I just divided them in half. It didn't quite have. Next year we'll have 2 more to add to that, but with 2 high schools, but I just swapped them. So every 2 years, we just wanted to create that kind of a cadence of cycle that you are in the building every 2 years. But I agree with you, the intimacy, the conversation, you can't really do in a presentation, so I think that was a good mix. Any other questions?
I think all of us were able to participate in the State of the Schools last year, so we don't have anyone new to them. But I do appreciate that we're doing them in 2 groups, and that we get to hear from the schools in the study sessions. Great idea to have the one-pager, not just speak for the condensed information, but to conserve paper. And I always enjoy hearing from principals, and we're literally like seeing manifest in front of us, like blood, sweat, and tears of just like so much work and so much dedication and so much thought and just absolute just work that is put into what they are showing us. And I just appreciate that they come and are willing to be vulnerable and share with us, what their growth is, what they need. When we ask how can we support you, that we really want to support them as a board, and that we're here to support them. So thank you, Assistant Superintendent Goebel, for that report.
Any other? Thank you.
All right. Ms. Lobos, curriculum renewal, mathematics adoption. So we're talking about possible mathematics adoption not possible, but what we're planning for grades 6 through 12 for math adoption. It's getting late.
So before I begin, I'd also like to extend the gratitude that my colleagues shared with all of you for all the time that you sacrifice and your families clearly sacrifice so that you can be here and provide leadership to the district. So thank you very much. Board President Brown, Superintendent Whitney, members of the board, it's my pleasure to be with you this evening to provide a recommendation for math grades 6 through 12 for our curriculum adoption. And so when we're talking about curriculum adoption, it goes back to what Mrs. Whitney was speaking about earlier, what core instruction is. So this is a core instructional adoption for mathematics at our secondary grades. So this is the district policy regarding materials adoption. So I just put it on here for you to review because there is policy around the adoption of core materials. These are the committee participants, and we do have 2 participants here today, and I asked them to come. It's Marisa Mejia and Kylie Gallisher. They can both stand up and be acknowledged. So their names are up here. They're not only here to answer any possible questions that you may have with regards to the details of the work, but I also want to acknowledge that these committee participants were here every Tuesday for 2 years beyond working hours to complete this adoption. And that's why we all look so tired. So the first part of the adoption process is developing the pre-screening criteria. There are many materials available that are aligned to the standards and available for districts to purchase. This phase in the process allows the committee to narrow based on district needs that align to the specific population of students and demographics that we serve. So this slide outlines the additional areas the committee chose to focus on. Once the committee used the pre-screening rubric to narrow down the materials, in our case, they narrowed down to 2. Physical copies of those 2 materials were delivered to each secondary site, every middle school and every high school for stakeholder feedback. And the way that we did that is we set that up, Mr. Flynn and I delivered, especially he mostly, to the buildings, and there was a QR code where teachers would upload survey responses to their feedback of their materials, and then we collected that and shared that information with the committee. So in addition, participants field tested the materials in the schools and used the usability rubric to report their findings. And I'm happy to report that all the members that remain on the committee all choose to field test those materials. These are some, not all, of the usability measures that field testing participants used to report their findings. Middle and high school staff work collaboratively in groups to review their usability ratings of the materials. All of their feedback was recorded using those recording rubrics, and then once recorded, all the committee members could review the feedback from each other that using the materials and come to collaboration and regarding their use and their findings. So finally, our committee members reviewed all of their data sources and made a final recommendation. So after the recommendation, the materials at every grade level were taken through the OSPI bias screening process, which we've talked about before. And finally, the recommendation was made to the IMC, or the Instructional Materials Committee, that is made up of staff and community members. In our final stages of this process, we're bringing the information to you, our school board, and we'll ask for a subsequent approval on the consent agenda at this next board meeting. So the recommendation for the committee is for Envision from Savas for both middle and high school levels. And the bullets in this slide outline information regarding the selection. Next steps. After approval from the board, we will plan for implementation. This includes purchase of the materials, plan for professional development, and then during the first or second year of implementation, we will work to develop pacing and alignment documents for staff. And that's all I have, unless you have questions either I or the team can answer for you. Oh, and I did forget to mention Mr. Flynn was also, he helped guide the committee with me, and he was also there every Tuesday.
This is just a general question, how this is financed. I assume this is in our regular budget?
Correct.
And will this create any extraordinary challenge to our regular budget?
It feels like everything is a challenge to our budget right now. I'm just to be honest. We budget for curriculum materials. So, I mean, it's part of the allocation that we get. Oftentimes, curriculum materials cost more than the allocation given to us by the state, but we know what our curriculum renewal cycle is and we budget for it.
What was the curriculum that was being used that we are replacing?
So we are currently using Agile Mind at both middle and high school levels.
Was that one of the materials that was considered for adoption, or?
It was not on the list of the finals, no.
Is that also based on, so is that based on state? So is the curriculum, does this, with math curriculum, does the state set out curriculum that we can choose from? And then
So
we-
our state, there are states that do that. Our state does not do that. What our state does is they provide the standards. And now there's a lot of states that have done that work. So there's a lot of alignment documents with regards to materials that are out there. So we don't necessarily have to do all of that. And for the most part, the materials are aligned to the standards, which is why we come up with the criteria of additional things that we're looking for to meet the specific needs of our students.
How hard was it to find curriculum that had Spanish for all the years? Did that limit it quite a bit down, or do they all do that?
So it is challenging in that, so there were different pieces of Spanish that were available from different publishers, and I would say that's the most challenging piece, that often publishing companies make promises of things that they have, and then when we get them in our hands, they maybe aren't as thorough as maybe they had indicated at some point, which is why getting your hands on the materials and really doing a thorough analysis is very important to us.
For the teachers who are here in attendance, did they do the field tests in their classrooms?
Did you guys want to come up? So
Sorry
they
to
can
put you
share
on the
with
spot,
you.
but I'd love to hear about.
They
what
can
you
each
might
share
have.
with you what grades they field tested and which materials.
Thank you for having us, Marissa Mejia, Ray Reynolds, middle school instructional coach, primarily in math, but also bilingual. And I took it upon myself to field test in both English and Spanish, which was a huge effort, and a shout out to all the teachers who do that every day, all day long. But I field tested in the 6th grade, and I focused on making sure that both English and Spanish materials were equitable, because as Carlos said before, there were a lot of promises and parts of curriculum that were translated, but to find authentic translation that was equitable for both language of students was fairly difficult once we got into the piloting of the materials. And so I primarily focused at the 6th grade level, because that is one of our main dual language levels currently at the middle schools. And so I was able to, because I don't have a set of students, I was able to co-teach with both English-speaking mainstream classroom and our 6th grade dual language Spanish-speaking classroom.
Thank you.
Kylie Gallisher from Pasco High School. I field tested this in my geometry classes, which are gen ed geometry classes, and an inclusion geometry class. And what I appreciated most about this curriculum is its ability to offer a variety of levels for my students who needed level 1 material, level 2, level 3, and it made it very easy to meet the needs of all of my students.
Beautiful.
I'll have them stay up here just in case you have any questions for them.
Thank you for sharing with us. And it is really, it's a lot of work to look at a new curriculum, to go through a new teacher manual, to figure out how it's laid out, to figure out what the lesson that you're supposed to be teaching right now is, how to align the standards, and then teach that to your students, and do that all on top of what you're already doing when you're teaching your already adopted curriculum. So thank you so much for taking the time to really field test this and make sure that it's the right choice for Pasco School District.
We were talking about adoption and the difficulty of adoption. How does this curriculum rate on the ability to get things adopted fairly quickly?
In terms of conceptual understanding for students?
Or just compared to other curriculum?
It was really great to see such a variety of new materials available for students. I know that during our last adoption, I was not part of the process, but Agile Mind was lacking in a lot of areas. But it was the best fit at the time. And currently,
all of the new materials that were available had components that we didn't previously have for students, like online tutoring, parent letters, how-to videos, and when you get stuck, how to work through those problems, homework help, additional practice problems, assignments. There are all these different components that the new materials had available to us. That it did take a lot of time to go through them all, but ultimately we ended up settling on this one because this one had the most variety to meet the needs of all of our students, both in English and Spanish, and a variety of ability levels as well, to make sure that all of our students are progressing.
As compared to our current curriculum, as a teacher, I genuinely feel very handcuffed to the curriculum, where I am not able to make the necessary changes to meet the needs of my student. Whereas this curriculum is much more flexible, and it allows teachers to build on their strengths as educators to meet the needs of their students and do what is best within their classroom. And so I believe that this allows a lot more flexibility and fluidity for our educators to be able to reach the needs within their classrooms.
Scalatree have a beautiful way with words. Ms. Lobos, a question for you. With our PLC work and the common informative assessments that have already been created, are those specific to Agile Minds, and will there need to be new common formative assessments created in PLCs to align with the new curriculum?
So I will tell you that most of our schools, and you guys can jump in, are working with one of our math consultants, Sasha Hammond, and those common formative assessments are built around the standards and the item specifications, not necessarily the materials.
Director Simmons, it seemed like you wanted to say something.
Well, maybe this kind of already got answered. So based on our implementation of our reading curriculum, the time it takes to implement that curriculum, and we're still working on it, or the district is still working on it, I'm not working on it. Let me set that straight, who's actually doing the real work. It sounds like, based on the experience that we've listened to here, that this curriculum could have a shorter adoption time, or before it, is that what I mean, is that a fair assessment, or do you see the adoption time being shorter before we start seeing major?
The implementation time would be the same. It would be so this would be for next year, which was similar with the ARC. It's the next school year after the materials adoption. So the timeline is the same. The implementation of those materials is what we're hoping would maybe, what we're tackling in terms of implementation, that was in the next steps, is really providing for professional development to make sure that we capture every teacher. And one of the reasons that we started this work last year, and it was also important to committee members, is to make sure that we get the materials in their hands before they leave for the summer, maybe to offer some training this year for teachers so that they have more of the tools in their toolbox, instead of just they come in fall, they open a new classroom, and then they have materials that are shrink wrapped that they've never seen before. So it's really about providing the materials and the training ahead of time so that they have the opportunity to look into them before the school year starts. And then again, it would be really customizing support, and that's something that we would also do in our next steps, is working with our secondary principals to make determinations of when we have access to teachers, math teachers specifically, on like early release Wednesdays or things like that, where we have, and we can provide PD where everyone is in attendance to assure that they understand the implementation of the different materials. And like our colleagues and committee members said, there's a lot of different pieces, just like there are in ARC, that are now available just because of the different platforms and technology resources, that we want to make sure that teachers understand how to access those so that subsequently students can also access those when they're in those courses.
When is the proposed adoption timeline?
So I will bring it it will be on the consent agenda for the board at the next board meeting. And then from there, we would then purchase the materials and then get them out to teachers this year as soon as possible.
Thank you for your guys' hard work and taking the time to implement that at your own doing, really.
Was there a community preview night, and is there any feedback from the community about the proposed materials?
So we will do a parent preview after the adoption.
I am so sorry. student board reps, I have been neglectful to ask you to participate in any of our discussions tonight. Is there anything you wanted to add to this report?
I would love to say that because like at Delta, it's different, like math stuff. But when I was in middle school at Ray Reynolds, no one liked Agile Minds. I'll be honest. At least from my class that I had, I didn't have a student say, "Oh, I love Agile Minds." One time. I don't know if that's just because it's math curriculum, but it was pretty blocky and kind of hard to navigate most of the time. And I'm hoping this new curriculum helps to alleviate a lot of those issues of being not very accessible and kind of leaving you out there to try to learn the math by yourself.
I can second that it was just an Agile Minds thing, because like I also went to Reynolds. I had Mr. Henry, who's actually on the middle school committee. We both had Mr. Henry, and Agile Minds was just like not it as a student. I remember then I had Delta Math previously. I used Delta Math in a previous math class, and I preferred that over Agile Minds, and I didn't even like Delta Math. So it wasn't the most favorable for students, but being able to see that there's something implemented where it can meet students based on where they're at and then actually give them help, like the homework help that you mentioned and the tutoring, I think is a wonderful opportunity for our students, because math isn't always the easy subject for a lot of people. So being able to have extra resources for our students to turn to all in one location and like within the curriculum, I think will really benefit our students coming in.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little comforting to hear that Agile Minds is kind of consensusly not liked by teachers and students alike. So that was good to hear. But it was really good to hear that with this new program that teachers were able to adapt their strengths to that. And I think that's really important really important for teaching, because if the teacher's engaged, there's a way better chance that the students will be engaged into what they're teaching. So I'm really looking forward to that with the new curriculum.
Well, thank you so much for staying to this late hour to share your experience with the proposed materials. We appreciate you being here, and we appreciate your report, Assistant Superintendent Lobos.
Yes. Thank you, and thank you.
And I can't go without saying that Mrs. Gallacher is my son's teacher, and she's really good. Next item on the agenda is future agenda items. Ms. Whitney.
So as Ms. Ms. Goebel discussed, at our next meeting, the study session will be State of the School reviews for Columbia River, Livingston, and Curie STEM Elementary. We'll have a Superintendent Student Action Council presentation based on the meeting we're having tomorrow. Denise Stiffarm is our outside legal consultant who helps us with our capital facilities plan. She will be here to do that presentation. We're scheduled to do another board progress monitoring report, this time on math core. And we have a special presentation. Livingston Elementary has been designated as an OSPI School of Distinction. So Mira will do a short presentation in highlighting what that award is about and how they won it and really celebrate Livingston.
Thank you, Superintendent Whitney. I failed to ask if concerning any of our reports, Washington State Clean Building Performance Standards, State of the School's review preparation, or curriculum renewal mathematics adoption, grades 6 through 12, if we had any public comments about any of those reports. Anyone in the boardroom? Mr. Garrett, anyone online? Thank you. We will move on to communications. Director Norberg, would you like to start?
I guess this is kind of a future agenda item that I'd like to think about is just to hear all the things on the budget, just kind of a budget update. I just think that it's good to see the work that's being done and the extended effort to do the math curriculum. I just think that's really awesome that you guys are willing to put that effort into it, and I congratulate you on that. And it sounds like it's going to be a good selection. I think I'll just leave it at that there. I just think that I am thankful that the board and Pasco schools are operating in a way that I think is excelling compared to what I hear from other reports from other school boards and school board members. I just want to say that I congratulate everybody that's involved with Pasco School District for their hard work and for their just pushing through. And I just say, keep it up. And we appreciate what you're doing.
I just want to thank again the staff for this very thoughtful gift this evening. I didn't even know it was Board Appreciation Month, and we certainly do not. Those of us on this dais are not here to be thanked or to have a pat on the back. The ability to serve the people is why we're here, and it is motivation enough. And I think when I learned that it was Board Appreciation Month, I reflected a little bit about, once again, the reasons why I decided to throw my hand in and seek to serve. And it's to help others, to help the people, to help families. And it was nice to kind of reconnect to those original motivations and values that keep me going and wanting to do all I can to help our students, our families in this district.
I don't have much to comment on. Haven't really doing a lot around the school district other than going to school. I did, Dr. Kennedy did say about a LULAC meeting about current issues and fears regarding immigration stuff at Ochoa Middle School, 6 p.m. on, you said January 30th?
Yeah, Thursday.
On Thursday this week. If anybody has any fears or thoughts about current issues, they're welcome you to go to that meeting.
I want to say, number one, that I'm proud of our music department and our music programs in Pasco, as they've always been our pride and joy. I can say Chiwana is also having a showcase called Sing a Song at our high school theater. It's $10 for adults, $7 for students, and the proceeds go back to our music department. And that I'm just proud that our music department as a district and all of our programs are able to flourish, because it is, as somebody who's gone through music programs at McLaughlin and Reynolds, I was a former student of Mr. Bennett and Mr. McFadden. It is genuinely one of the best experiences to have as a student in Pasco, to be a part of programs like that, like music and sports, athletics, extracurriculars, and clubs. So I'm very grateful that our district does hold a lot of value in our students. And I think that's the only thing I have to say.
Yeah, I wanted to thank the staff for the very kind basket. That was very nice. And I also wanted to thank the whole entire board and Michelle and everyone else involved. They really do great work here. So much work goes on behind the scenes, and they've been tremendous to work with and learn from over this past year so far. And I'm looking forward to continuing that. And then tomorrow night at, is it Reynolds? We're at tomorrow? Yes. Reynolds, we're at tomorrow for the Portrait of a Graduate. We're wrapping that up, so that's really exciting. We get to see a final product of that, and always looking forward to go meeting with other parents, teachers, and community members there. So, yeah.
I forgot to mention that the Chiwanas Showcase is actually on the 7th and the 8th of February, just to give you a date, at 7 p.m. at Chiwanas Theater.
So I say I'm going to keep it brief. I hope I do. I just want to piggyback on what Director Kennedy said real quick about serving on the board It is humbling, and I do definitely appreciate the opportunity that the community gave me. And since I'm the at-large position, it definitely is the community to be able to serve. And I hope that I'm doing my duty by giving back to the community and helping that our parents and the students in our district have the opportunities they need to be successful and gain that education. Also wanted to piggyback on Student Board Rep Raina's comment. I just forgot what it was. Music, yes. Thank you very much. With Mr. May and Mr. Bennett and their students that are going to the WNBA. So congratulations to that, the hard work and effort that you put forth into that and to be able to make that achievement. So it does not go unnoticed, and I definitely do appreciate our music program here too. I have my own children are in that program. So one thing I wanted to just say real quick, you know, in our state right now, especially during this legislative session, that things are just, we're on a roller coaster up and down. But one thing I wanted to say is that, and I'm not speaking for the whole board, but I just have a feeling the whole board would probably say this too, that as me personally, as a board director, we sit up here and we kind of direct the superintendent, and of course she's kind of the boss of the district. She's the administrative head of the district, but really when it comes down to it, I consider myself standing adjacent with other parents in the district. I'm right alongside them as a parent myself, but also supported them as a director. I would say the same thing as a board, and also me as a director. I stand adjacent to those in the district and the administrative staff and the teachers that put forth effort to make this district what it is and make our students, give them the education that they deserve. And like Director Norberg said, and as I've paid attention to a lot of the things going on around other districts, it seems that there's a lot of chaos, a lot of commotion, a lot of doubt, a lot of concern. I appreciate the fact that in this district, we are all about the business of the district, about making sure that what matters is our students get the education that they need, and that we are maintaining this district at the business level and functioning. We don't get into the messy details that a lot of things I see going around the state. So I appreciate that. I know a lot of us have different opinions about different things. We come from different backgrounds. We have a lot of different ideas. And this district, both not just at the board level, but the district level, the administrative level, the teachers, the students, the parents, were able to understand that the main focus and goal and mission of this is to provide a worthwhile and adequate and ample education for our students, which has benefits for both us, our community, everyone. So it's just a big thank you and for all that hard work.
Yes, thank you very much for the recognition. It's always very humbling to receive gifts from people who give so much of themselves. Today is my son's 18th birthday, and so there are the sacrifices that we make as board members. I would love to be home with him, but I also have a responsibility to the community and to the district to be here tonight representing those people who voted me in District 3. So as for my communications, I went to the Martin Luther King Jr. Event that was at CBC on Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and I kind of reflected about what we all do in the schools to teach our students about why we have that day off, and the agent for change that Martin Luther King Jr. was, and such a great impact on our nation that we take a day off to remember him. And that change was needed and necessary and so important. Civil rights is something that we should be celebrating every day, that we get to live in a nation where students get to attend school, that they want to attend no matter the color of their skin, no matter what language they speak, and that we get to speak multiple languages in our school without having to worry about any kind of repercussion from what has happened in other states with dual language programs where they say it needs to be English only, because of the work of Martin Luther King Jr. And that change was so amazing and so profound. And the thing about change is that it can also bring a lot of uncertainty, and change can also be scary. And there's change now, and it can be definitely uncertain, and not knowing what's going to happen is scary. And so I really appreciated the email that Superintendent Whitney sent out to staff this last week that said that we believe what is emblazoned on Pasco High School, all belong, todos pertenecen. All of our students belong here, and all of our students are welcome. And I really want to honor the life of Martin Luther King Jr. and the work that he did in the work that I do every day in schools and the work that I do here on the school board.
So I just want to take an opportunity to echo the gratitude that you've heard from district staff for your dedication on the board. And I found, I think, this amazing quote that says, "The heart of a volunteer is not measured in size, but by the depth of the commitment to making a difference in the lives of others." And I've watched each of you in turn make a commitment to over 19,000 students, 3,000 staff, day in and day out, doing the amazing work of supporting, educating the kids and the youth of this community. So I just, on behalf of myself and the district, want to again express gratitude to you. I learned something from each of you every time I have the opportunity to spend time with you, and I truly believe that we are better together. And it is unique worldview and perspective that help us make well-rounded decisions on behalf of the people that we serve. So thank you for allowing me to be a part of the board with you as part of the team, and it's just an extraordinary honor to watch you volunteer, because truly this is a volunteer job, and the hours that you put in are often unnoticed, but definitely never underappreciated. So thank you. I also wanted to highlight the ESD is hosting a career expo, and it will be on January 30th from 5 to 7:30 at Pasco High, and it's a chance for Pasco students and their families to experience and explore career pathways through engaging demonstrations, meet local employers, and learn about real-world work experiences in interactive booths. So people that are interested, please attend. And I also just wanted to give you an update on where we are with our Choice High School applications. As a reminder, those close on February 14th for Delta and Orion and Virtual New Horizons. So as of today, we're happy to announce there are 184 students who are interested in attending Delta, 238 at Orion, and we have 35 Pixel students who are interested in attending Virtual New Horizons. So, and then, go ahead.
What time was the 30th?
I'm sorry, it's at 5 to 7:30 at Pasco High School. And then I wanted to bring to, I made note of Dr. Norberg's request for future agenda item around budget. I did want to acknowledge that this board had requested some information from the city, and I had said I would reach out to the city manager to schedule a time for him to come to the board. I did that. We scheduled a time. Since then, he has now gotten a different job, and the city is seeking a transition in leadership. So I don't believe we had another option but to postpone that presentation until the point in which that leadership is solid and changed. So I just wanted to let the board know that I did reach out. It was scheduled, and we'll have to modify that based on changes in leadership at the city level. So thank you.
And we have no executive session tonight, so thank you for your attendance. This meeting is adjourned.